welcome back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Retrospective, taking a look at each film in the MCU and seeing how well they hold up. Last time we saw Marvel's first standalone film starring a female superhero with Captain Marvel, a simply okay movie. Today we look at the finale of the MCU's epic story with Avengers Endgame. With both this and Infinity War being made simultaneously, the same people were involved in production. Some things were positioned to accommodate the MCU films in production. Spider-Man Far From Home had begun principal photography while Endgame was still filming, and Brie Larson had finished all her scenes before working on Captain Marvel. Despite things being done out of order, there was a consistency between productions. One of the biggest things about the movie was the title itself. Initially, Endgame was labeled as Infinity War Part 2. However, it was removed early on in production to differentiate it from Infinity War as to separate the stories even though they were closely connected to each other. The film's actual title was kept secret for the longest time, leading to many theories and guesses on the internet. Names tossed around included Infinity Gauntlet, Last Avenger, Avengers Assemble, and the actual title, Endgame. Even when the first trailer came out just a couple months before the movie was released, the title was not on the trailer's label and wasn't seen until the end of the video. The marketing was also pretty sparse. Little footage was shown in trailers made before the theatrical premiere, and there was barely any information about the plot. We knew that the blipped heroes would return in some way, we just didn't know how. The team made sure to avoid premature spoilers at all costs. In fact, the release date was made on the same day worldwide to prevent the film from leaking online before most audiences saw it. Endgame premiered in early summer of 2019 to unprecedented success. It broke numerous box office records and quickly climbed its way up the list of highest-grossing films of all time. The success was so high that Disney re-released the film after its initial run with some added content after the credits to try and beat James Cameron's Avatar. Eventually, it did and held the position of the highest-grossing film of all time without inflation until Avatar was re-released in China for the umpteenth time in a row and taking the number one spot back. Even so, Endgame is widely regarded as one of, if not the best superhero movie ever made, and more than a satisfying conclusion to an 11-year story. Now that the MCU is moving forward with what we hope is a bigger and better story, does Endgame still work without the hype? Let's make the jump and see. The film opens right where Infinity War ended, showing us Clint Barton and his family during these events. His happy life is quickly taken from him as everyone around him is dusted away. If you thought Infinity War had a bleak opening, this is just downright depressing. We cut to the Marvel Studios logo, which has removed each of the blipped Avengers as a little extra detail, and we see Tony and Nebula on the Guardian ship stranded in space. The two bond and work together to survive despite the circumstances. Tony uses his damaged helmet to send a goodbye message to Pepper in a final effort to reach out. Seeing Tony at his lowest point is something to behold. The Russos did everything in their power to put us in a negative mindset with this beginning. As Tony drifts off to sleep, he is awoken by a blinding light. It's Captain Marvel Ex Machina to the rescue! To be fair, she is the only hero who we know travels long distances in space, so it makes sense that she would be sent to find him. She brings the two to Earth, where they share a somber reunion with the other Avengers. The team asks Tony if he knows where Thanos could have gone, but he's made it clear he wants no part in the battle. He even rips off his nanocore and berates Steve for not being there with him. Carol wants to go after Thanos, but the others question where she's been this whole time. She responds by saying other worlds didn't have the Avengers. She makes a good point. While we have the Guardians of the Galaxy, they protect one galaxy, not galaxies. This could be explored further in the Marvels, showing what she's been doing for the past 20 years. Nebula tells the group of a garden Thanos often spoke of visiting when his work was done. They track the energy signature from his snap and find him on a remote planet where he used the stones again. The team all agree to go get him, retrieve the stones, and bring everyone back as the title card rules. We cut to them on the Guardian ship heading to Thanos. They find him alone and strike while he's vulnerable. They even manage to chop off the hand that held the gauntlet. However, the stones are nowhere to be found. When questioned about them, Thanos reveals that he used the stones to destroy them so his snap could not be undone. He is inevitable. As he tries to reconcile with Nebula, Thor goes for the head this time. The Avengers leave defeated. This is not only a fantastic subversion of expectations, but also a great way to keep the audience on their toes. We then get the most insane thing in the movie. The film jumps ahead 5 years. 5 years of half the universe in grief and sorrow. This is one of Marvel's ballsiest moves ever. We see Steve running a support group for survivors. Here we get a cameo from Joe Russo. He previously cameoed in Winter Soldier, Civil War, and a deleted scene from Infinity War as different characters. In Endgame, he portrays the first gay character in the MCU film-wise. It's just a small moment, but it's nice that they acknowledge the LGBTQ+ community. Natasha has been running point with the other Avengers. Carol, Rocket, and Nebula handle things in space, while Rhodey and Okoye look over Earth. Okoye offhandedly mentions an underwater earthquake that may or may not be a reference to Namor. We'll have to wait and see. Rhodey's also been tracking Clint, who has been going on some sort of rampage. Steve comforts her as she worries about him. Meanwhile, a rat lands on a switch to Scott Lang's van in a storage facility and activates the quantum tunnel, freeing him. Yep, the whole reason for the plot progressing is a rodent. Scott returns, shocked and surprised at the change. He goes to his old house and finds an older Cassie, played by Emma Furman. He then goes to the Avengers base and talks to Natasha and Steve. He tells them that while 5 years passed for them, he was only 5 hours in the quantum realm. He believes this could be the key to time travel and reversing what Thanos did. However, they need a highly intelligent brain. They go to Tony, but he clearly wants no part in this, especially as he's finally settled down with a family, including a daughter Morgan, played by Lexi Rave. So they go to Bruce, who looks quite different. His time after the snap made him reflect on his other half, the Hulk. He spent some time in the Gamma Lab and combined his brain with the Hulk's body. This is taken from a part in the comics where he's referred to as Professor Hulk. Bruce is hesitant, but thinks it's worth a shot. Tony himself cracks the code of time travel and is unable to hide from the fact. After a failed experiment where Scott ages up and down, Tony returns to the base and agrees to help as long as they promise to keep what they have now, meaning his family. He also gives Steve the Captain America shield back, rekindling their friendship. They summon the others while Bruce and Rocket head to New Asgard, a Norwegian city the Asgardians settled on, and get Thor. Thor has arguably handled things the worst. He's gone into a stupor of drinking and eating, becoming Fat Thor. It's a fun comedic take for Chris Hemsworth while maintaining a good arc for the character. Natasha heads to Tokyo, where Clint is massacring criminals as the sword-wielding Ronin, not to be confused with Ronin the Accuser. He spent the past few years killing criminals in revenge for losing his family. He attacks the leader of the Yakuza, played by Hiroyuki Sanada, before Nat brings him home. He volunteers to do a test run of Tony's time machine. We also get an explanation about the MCU's version of time travel. They wanted it to have a different identity than something like Back to the Future. Traveling to the past does not alter the present or future. It simply creates a new reality. It sounds a little complicated, and at times it can be, but thankfully the Loki series rectified some of that. The group discusses their encounters with each of the stones and separates into groups. Tony, Steve, Bruce, and Scott go to New York in 2012. This is shown with some great splicing of old and new footage. Bruce goes to the Sanctum to find Doctor Strange, but encounters the Ancient One instead. They didn't realize he only became Sorcerer Supreme after 2012. Bruce tries to take the Time Stone from the Ancient One, but she pushes his astral form out of his body, separating him from the Hulk. Thor and Rocket go to Asgard in 2013 to extract the ether from Jane. Thor has trouble handling this, especially since this was the day Frigga died. He's lifted thanks to a not-so-friendly pep talk from Rocket. Rhodey, Nebula, Natasha, and Clint go to Morag in 2014. Rhodey and Nebula wait for Quill, while Nat and Clint make course for Vormir. Steve retrieves the scepter holding the Mind Stone from Strike and Sitwell by hailing Hydra, a fun and clever reference to a comic where Cap was a Hydra agent. Tony and Scott take the Tesseract by causing a distraction until the Hulk knocks Tony aside and it lands near Loki, who grabs it and escapes. and I'm sure he'll never cause any trouble again. Bruce convinces the Ancient One to give him the Time Stone, promising to return it and prevent a branching reality. Thor goes to his mother, who reacts surprisingly calm to meeting her son's future self. He tells her all that's happened, and she gives him a better pep talk as Rocket grabs the ether. Thor summons Mjolnir, proving he's still worthy, and they leave. On Morag, Rhodey and Nebula knock out Quill and take the Power Stone. However, as they leave, Nebula connects with her past self due to her cybernetic enhancement. This leads to Thanos discovering his future and their plan. What I love about this is Thanos' adaptability. He sees how his ultimate goal turned out and changes course upon a new discovery. Meanwhile, in New York, Tony comes to a realization. Knowing that they only have enough Pym particles for one round trip each, he picks another time to get the Tesseract and more particles in the same area. He and Steve head to New Jersey in 1970, where we get our final Stan Lee cameo. He's de-aged to look how he did in the 70s, with a woman acting as a stand-in for his wife Joan. It's a quick but nice moment. They find the S.H.I.E.L.D. base Howard Stark founded. Tony goes after the Tesseract, meeting his father along the way and reconciling with him. Steve distracts an even more de-aged Hank Pym to steal some particles. There's another cameo I should mention here. James D'Arcy as Edwin Jarvis. Yes, that's Jarvis. In the Marvel television show Agent Carter, D'Arcy portrayed Jarvis as Howard's butler. This marked the first time a Marvel television character appeared in an MCU film. However, I suspect this wouldn't have happened if it weren't for one thing. Marcus and McFeely created the Agent Carter series, also writing the pilot. Joe Russo even directed an episode. Either way, it's still a fun appearance. On Vormir, Nat and Clint meet the Red Skull and learn how to get the Soul Stone. The two argue and fight over who should sacrifice themselves until they're on the ledge, and Natasha takes the leap. This moment has mixed feelings across the board. Because Black Widow was such a popular character, many hoped she could have her own film one day. Eventually she did, but only after Endgame came out. The out-of-order sequence of events could be why it doesn't sit right with people, including me. Maybe if her movie came out before Endgame it could have felt satisfactory, but there's no way to know. In fairness, there was an alternate version of this scene where Thanos attacked them and Natasha reacted in the heat of the moment. The filmmakers were just as conflicted about this as we were. Clint retrieves the Soul Stone and leaves. Everyone returns to the present and mourns Natasha. They assemble a new gauntlet, and Bruce uses it as the radiation is mostly gamma. He snaps his fingers and manages to bring everyone back, but damages his arm severely. Suddenly, Thanos shows up and blows the base to sky high. He used past Nebula to pose as the present one and bring him to the future with her. He sends her for the stones while he takes on Iron Man, Cap, and Thor. Clint retrieves the gauntlet while past Gamora frees the present Nebula, who kills the past Nebula. Trust me, it's not as confusing as it sounds. Then we get a big fan service moment. Remember in Age of Ultron when everyone tried to lift the hammer and only Cap got kinda close? Turns out he was holding back as he wields it effortlessly here, even able to summon lightning. Despite this, Thanos does get the upper hand and summons his army, ready to destroy Earth. However, as Steve goes to fight him again, Sam reaches him on comms. Out of a portal comes Okoye, T'Challa, and Shuri. All the others come back. But it's not just Avengers. Ravagers, Asgardians, Wakandans, and Sorcerers all join in the fight. This is the most epic scene in cinema. Never in a million years did I think we'd see something like this on the big screen. All the audience reactions in the theaters are 100% accurate. All my nitpicks with this movie fade away because of this moment. We get one of the greatest superhero climaxes ever. We also get some great individual moments, like Pepper suiting up as Rescue, and Tony reuniting with Peter, Quill fighting past Gamora, leaving things a little awkward, and Wanda gets pretty close to killing Thanos until he has his ships rain fire. Captain Marvel finally shows up and tries to get the stones to the quantum tunnel with the help of all our Lady Avengers. Thanos gets some good hits and eventually retrieves the gauntlet. Tony goes for the stones and manages to cleverly take them and use them himself. In a deleted scene, Tony was supposed to appear at the Soul Gate, where he would have met an older version of Morgan, played by Katherine Langford. Instead, we just see Thanos and his army fade away. Tony's body was unable to handle the power of the stones. He dies, giving a goodbye to everyone. A deleted scene expanded on this moment by having everyone take a knee, which is nice, but would have been too much. Everyone attends his funeral, including some familiar faces like Ross, Hill, Fury, and even Harley Keener. The moment I cried was not the same as everybody else. It wasn't Tony's death, his final message to Morgan, or his funeral pan. It was with Morgan and Happy, specifically her wanting cheeseburgers. I guess it's because of how Tony got one after coming home all the way back in Iron Man, but the way she says it has me bawling every time. And right now, this isn't in my script, but I'm just getting upset just thinking about it. This shouldn't be something that I have an emotion for a fictional character, but here we are. Okay, pull it together. Wanda and Clint share their loss and hope the lost ones know they won. Thor decides to give up the throne to Valkyrie and joins the Guardians. Steve goes to return the stones and the hammer to clip the branches of reality. However, he chooses to stay behind in the past, returning to Peggy. Old Steve talks with Sam and gives him the shield. Some people have mixed feelings about this. The mantle of Captain America was originally passed down to Bucky in the comics after Steve. Sam took that name much later. However, I'd argue that it fits for the MCU. Think about it. What is Bucky right now? He's still the Winter Soldier. He still has a lot of baggage, and considering his history, the idea of him being an American symbol would not work because his past would always be considered. Sam is the perfect idea of a modern symbol, and Steve recognizes that. The film ends with Steve and Peggy finally getting that dance. The credits pay homage to Marvel's history, recognizing all characters, big and small, before the core team sign off. For the first time since The Incredible Hulk, there is no mid or post-credit scene. The most we get is an audio clip of Tony forging his first suit. The re-release put new content after the credits, including an alternate introduction to Professor Hulk, with a cameo from Reginald Val Johnson, a Stan Lee tribute, and the opening scene of Far From Home. And with that, Endgame comes to an incredibly satisfactory close. Of all the MCU films I was returning to, I was afraid to see Endgame the most. I was worried the isolated rewatch would taint the euphoria I felt seeing it in theaters. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Are the flaws more apparent? Yes, but they don't affect the film as a whole. It's still a genuinely epic experience unlike any other. While the main story of the Infinity Saga was finished, there was one more loose end to tie up. Join me next time when we look at Spider-Man Far From Home and see if this epilogue is worthy of closing out 23 films. Until then, if you want to keep up with my videos, be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and check out my vlogs on my other channel. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and share it with friends. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.